Welcome back to another Ladder Legends replay analysis. Again, you can get your replays reviewed in the Ladder Legends Discord if you're a subscriber. This time we're looking at SOLiCiT, the Zerg player playing against Daxul. SOLiCiT said that he played a lot of things, a lot of units this game, and had a lot of fun. I guess he's just looking for some general feedback, so we'll start with the build order just a little bit, kind of look at what we're looking at. We're looking at a 12 hatchery. I think that it's probably, if we look at like when this Protoss chooses to pull, they don't pull immediately, which means that they are doing a pylon scout. So if you notice the kind of timings here, they arrive, 53 seconds, we're done, they arrive, a minute to 7 seconds later. So it is possible for them to block the base if they wanted to. They could still pull immediately and block the base. So if your plan here, SOLiCiT, is to not have your base blocked, then just be aware that this won't technically always work. Someone could still block your base, and then you're going to have to learn how to play split base anyway. So you are taking a pretty big economic hit every game, and it's not always going to work officially. Okay, let's speed through, see what else we see. Okay. So one thing that's really, one thing that we really want to avoid, I guess it's hard to say with this early pool, but typically we want hatchery in our pool and our queens to be spawned at the same time. But with this non-economic building, I'm not sure if there's a way to optimize that to be the case. So as long as we make our queens as soon as this pool comps, we should be fine. It was quite a bit of delay here. So one thing that you should look at making sure is like you need to start looking at timings and like when things like right when like the spawning pool is like a constraint. Like without the spawning pool, you can't make zerglings, you can't make queens. And so as soon as the spawning pool finishes, we should be like hammering that it's time to make the queens, especially. This third base is very, very early. We're not going to be taking this third base this early in this matchup anymore. We're really going to need to prioritize the queens coming out because the queen's going to help us defend against the adepts and get us that additional larva. So here we're focusing in on taking this third base, but we should be focusing in on this this pool timing and making sure that we are ready to start these two queens just as soon as this pool finishes. And then a couple of lings also will help us deal with this probe so we can take the third no problem later. Right now we're floating all this money, and it's because we're really focusing in on getting down this third base, but this third base is too early anyway. And what we should be focused on is these queens and these lings. Still focusing on the third base, still focusing on the third base. Still focusing on the third base. Still haven't started the queens yet. Now finally, when we're floating 3 larvae here, 3 larvae here, now we finally start to think about spinning larvae, and then after that, I assume we'll start thinking about queens. No, probably it's worth mentioning, even though I'm sure you're aware of this already, whenever a hatchery is floating 3 larvae, it does not generate any larvae naturally anymore. So most Zerg builds focus in on making sure that we never get to 3 larvae ever, and we always are spinning larvae before we get to that number. So if you're floating 2 larvae, maybe that's okay. Sometimes, I mean, there's an argument to be made that you want to spin your larvae on drones as soon as possible, no matter what. But sometimes it's okay to float 2 larvae, but as soon as you're floating 3 larvae, you better have a really good reason that you're floating 3 larvae.
Bones are under threat.
So we do finally make the queens. We make 10 lings. This is a lot of lings. Already, this is a ton of lings. So we mostly want to make at most 4, maybe 8 lings if we have an overload here and we see he's making a second adept. We see he's only made 1 adept. So against 1 adept, we only need 4 lings total, queens. And everything else should be drones. We want to start droning up, getting full mineral saturation here, full mineral saturation here, then put on gas here. As soon as we get 100, we can pull off of gas and get ling speed until we get full mineral saturation here, then we can put back on gas here. But this number of lings is quite too many. It's too many even if he has 2 adepts and he really only has 1. So I would just start to default to 4 lings unless you specifically see a reason to make more. Okay, we're droning up. We're getting up this layer very, very early. In general, like let's back to like, hey, we got to be spending our larva. We got to be getting down from 3. Uh, and that's like the goal. The goal isn't to get up tech up to layer right now. The goal is to spin our larva down from 3 and make sure we have ideally 0 larva, all of it spent on drones as possible. And then potentially extra queens. So more drones. We need to be prioritizing more and more drones. Here we're attacking. There's really nothing to attack here. It's good to come across map and like see stuff, but we really shouldn't ever expect. Here we're sort of getting a little more damage because he only made the 1 adept. He didn't make an oracle. So it can feel good, but ultimately this is not damage we should expect to get. And the far more consistent thing to be looking at here is droning, 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 droning. We should still be droning while we do this. Okay, now we start to fire up some drones. We want to be, but the thing is we still have even more money and we have more larvae, so we want to make even more drones.
Your evolution is final.
Once we hit to be like 45-ish drones, then we can probably take a couple of gases, think about like taking a Roachmore, and just because he's on 2 bases. If he was showing any indications that he wanted to take 3 bases, then we would still want to be droning even further. Once this layer finishes, then we can start an overseer immediately, send it to the base, and start to see what we can see. If we did do that, we would see that he has a robo facility and a robo bay after his target. And so basically these 2 things here tell us that we can go buku amounts of drones, we can get a 4th base, we can start an infestation pit, we can get up to... He's going to be having high-tech robo units out with this robo bay. It's going to be disruptors, or it's going to be Colossus most likely, and so both of the counters to those things are Vipers. Vipers make your life easier, and a lot of lower level players think that Vipers are going to make their life harder. No, it'll make it easier against these high-tech units, because when the Protoss army comes up, you can just abduct them, and then they're gone, and then the army is complete. It's bad quality. Ultimately, I don't mind going to Hydra's Den eventually, but we need to go to the Roach Warren first because we need to be able to defend the pressure as we get up there. So we're going to basically max out on Roach Ravager, and then we can and get a couple of Vipers, and then we can very slowly start going to Hydralisk Lurker. But all that's got to be on Hive Tech, and it's got to be on 4 bases, probably a 5th on the way with 10 gases on the way. The Hydras are nice, but the problem is that if he does get a push together and pushes us, just Hydra Ling is probably going to die to like Colossus, Colossus Archon, Charge a lot, these things are going to die, going to roll over Hydra Ling. So until we can get, that's why we really need the Roach Warren in order to like get a meaty defensive force that won't die to a big push. Finally, we're droning up more. This is good. Let's keep watching. He's taking a base. If we had a big army too, by the way, in addition to being able to be safe against pushes, we could also be very threatening on these bases here. Nice catch, but again, that's not necessarily a good reason to make Hydralisks here. Normally they won't just fly your units over your Hydralisks. Typically, they're not going to tell you their supply. Alright, what are we at? We're at 79 workers. We could be at probably 90 workers easily now because we see he has the bases here, he has the gases, he has a 4th, 90 workers. Easy 90 workers here. And we are going to want to be dropping a lurker den as well. When he has this storm, obviously that storm is going to need to be countered with Banelings or Lurkers, some sort of splash damage. Yep, this storm is continuing to be the bane of our army. We just don't have any splash. I guess technically we have Fungible a little bit, but it's not quite enough. And obviously, as you see, with the Infestors just sitting there, they get killed pretty easily. So core of our army in the mid game needs to be banelings, it needs to be lurkers, or it needs to be ultras. This Roachborn is entirely too late. No reason to make a load for Roachborn at this point. Ultra Den, Lurker Den, Baneling Nest. These would be your options. I'm gonna say it's gonna be the feedback probably for the rest of the game. Now we have finally get up to that night 4. Oh, we get the Lurker Den finally. Great. Wonderful. Let's see how this goes. So the big issue here is that we just don't have enough lurkers together, and like the lurkers can't really, you can't actually just push in with lurkers. If you're gonna play lurkers, then you need to start playing more like 1-2 army, have an army up here, push in, have an army here, and wherever he's not, that's where we can actually make ground. You can also get a Nidus. You can start flying in. You can try to like Nidus in the main somewhere, Nidus in the natural, but like we're not able to like headbutt into him. If we would go ultras with Shroud, Infestor Shroud, we can probably fungal and shroud and then like use ultras to headbutt into this army, no problem. If we have banelings, then you can sort of split and headbutt into this army, no problem. But with lurkers, you're going to be playing a much more positional game where you try to attack on 2 different or maybe even 3 different locations. You're not really able to just force your way into an army like this. Now we're going to roaches again. You see the power of roaches at this point. They can really do a pretty big fight and really big push, but it is just kind of too late for the roach phase of this game. Another point to make here: so you always need to have an overseer with your army. I think your overseers may have died. You need to make sure you remake them so that he can't just work in Dark Temple. And then the big thing here: this army completely dies to these roaches if they all stay together. But you notice that more than half your roaches are coming down here, and then half your roaches get caught in the army here. If all these roaches engage here, then probably you win pretty effectively. But because our roaches kind of get caught out, most of the roaches die here, then the rest of the roaches die here. That really hasn't accomplished much. So in StarCraft, we want to keep, typically speaking, you want to keep armies in a ball. Only if you specifically can't keep them all because of the splash damage, do you split them up. But typically speaking, having all your armies in a ball when they engage, or in like maybe an arc, right? Not like specifically a ball, or maybe like an arc. Having them all together engaged at the same time causes the most amount of damage. And causes the best trading, and snowballs pretty effectively. Okay, now we're going for the ultras. Okay. The one thing about the ultras is we do want to have, we've already lost all of our infestors. It'd be great to have infestors alive and use combo fungal micro. And again, this is just coming back to, we don't want to be streaming our units in. We need to pull all of our units. We have 11 ultras and there's only 3 right here. We need to ball everything up like here. And then once everything's balled up, then we can move together. As it stands, 3 ultras die, 3 ultras die, all the hydras die, 3 ultras die. And all of a sudden, it's like, it feels like Zerg doesn't have good units. But it's because we engaged him like it was a campaign, trickling units in, not like we were trying to win the game by blowing all the stuff up and pushing in. At this point, we're actually still doing pretty okay just because we have a good worker count compared to him. He is floating quite a bit of money, but so long as we can ever ball our stuff up and actually fight him, we should be doing pretty fine. Again, we need overseers. The Hydras, the Ultras and the Lurkers don't really have a whole lot of synergy. If you have to start playing an Ultra late game, they sort of can work together, or like work in sort of like you can have them both. But in this stage of the game, like these Lurkers, I'd much rather just see them be infestors and look for that microbial fungal combo with the Ultras. And again, the story of this game is us never getting an army together, falling up and then going, and just always engaging haphazardly. looks like, okay, now the big problem is he has a huge bank, and we all of a sudden don't have as many workers anymore. So we need to get our worker count back up. That should be our number one priority. We need to start spending our gas banks. So like either probably at this point lurkers is the right call, so that we can make lurkers for to be defensive while we get our drum count back to where it needs to be. We don't need to be fighting here right now. We need to be getting back. Yeah, I mean, just barely, but we don't have the economy to really support that attack, which is why it fizzles out and doesn't actually break through. And now the Tempests are out. Once the Tempests are out, you should have already have had a Spire a long time ago, so you can start addressing them with Corruptors. Okay. I suspect we are not going to win this game because now we're down to 27 drones. We haven't realized it, and we are not remaking drones. This is great whenever it's like a longer game. You can have like a pack of upgraded Zerglings with like an Overseer, and they can start to deal with like Zealot run-bys. They can start to deal with DT run-bys. You can start to put static defense. Obviously, in this case, we can't afford it, but that's typically how we would deal with these sorts of side armies. Yeah, the story of this game was just one, we didn't really have a solid mid-game tech composition. You know, we need to have those lurkers, ultras, or banelings to go to be on the offensive. And then two, really, whenever we did get the armies that we needed together, we never balled them up and then went together. We always kind of streamed in, had them fight separate from each other. All right, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, again, join the Lateral Edges Discord. It'll be linked in the description. And you can ask questions there, and if you sub, you can get replay analysis of your own.